time for another Elsie's Little Pickles, the pickle pod for the people, encouraging everyone out there to do their pickle protest and leave a pickle on a MAGA porch. Take a picture of it, send it to Elsie's Little Pickles at gmail.com. It is the simplest form of protest. It is also one that can't get anyone in trouble or make anyone upset. With that being said, sad news. We lost, depending on who you talk to, a political icon. Jimmy Carter passed away.
President Peanut.
President Peanut is no longer. But it does need to be said that as far as presidents go, there's a lot of people who thought he was not a great president on both sides. However,
okay, I have an opinion on that.
Okay.
I would like to put this forward. So when I was in AP US government in 11th grade in high school,
yeah,
we talked about Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
And
as you should.
Yeah. My teacher, Mr. Kopesha, he never really indicated one way or another, like what his personal politics were.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of all had our beliefs that he was kind of a Romney Republican.
Mm-hmm.
But even he was honest enough to point out that people only disliked Jimmy Carter because he said very plainly, hey guys, so we're kind of in a really bad spot right now, and everyone's going to have to kind of tighten the belt.
Yeah, and he did it himself. So this was a guy who installed solar panels back in, the 70s onto the White House, which immediately were ripped off by Reagan.
God damn it, Reagan.
But he installed solar panels. He turned the heat down in the entire White House to, I believe it was 68 degrees. And he turned, if I'm not mistaken, it might have even been less than that. It might have been 65 in his residence in the White House. But it was at least 68 degrees. And he
One of the most environmental presidents.
Very much so. And very ahead of his time in that sense.
Yeah.
And
fuck Nixon, but he followed right in Nixon's footsteps as far as the environment goes.
Exactly. People don't realize this. The idea of being environmentally conscious actually started with a Republican.
Ooh, but that's inconvenient.
Oh, that stings a little bit.
And before I forget, because I don't want people to be confused, and we kind of just jumped into Jimmy. Unfortunately, and fortunately, we don't have Kiefer here. Fortunately, I have Colton here, but Kiefer is getting his brain implant from Elon so that he can control his RV with his brain. So I don't know if that's going to work out or not.
Either way, you're stuck with me.
Well, there was talk. I mean, he mentioned if that doesn't work out, he's just going to have his brain put into the RV, and he's going to live vicariously through his RV from now on.
Kiefer, in fact, identifies as an RV.
He does identify as an RV. See, we can poke fun at liberals too, you stupid bitches.
Lib cucks.
So back to Carter for a little bit. I don't think you can say whatever you want to say about his actual presidency, for good or for bad. I think that he actually did far more than he got credit for, and he deserves more credit than what he got. However, you cannot, under any circumstance, I don't think, find any other ex-president who has donated more time to a particular project or passion project than he has. And that, for him, was Habitat for Humanity. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, he actually got out there, him and Rosalind Carter, they were hammer in hand putting together houses for low-income people all over the country. You cannot argue the generosity of the man's heart. You cannot argue the service that he gave this country. Here's what a lot of people don't know.
He grew a mean peanut.
Not only did he grow a mean peanut, okay, and obviously you had Billy Carter with Billy Bear, and that was a problem for him. But that all being said, what people don't realize is that he was in the military and actually went, if I've got the story straight, and I have to go back and double check to make sure I'm correct on this, but there was some sort of nuclear weapon or submarine or some shit. Anyways, something nuclear had gone sideways, and he was the soldier that got sent in to fix it, and he did, and risked his life right out of the gate there. Then he got out of the military, got into politics, kind of under the radar, to be honest with you, because he was a Southern Democrat, which at that time was definitively not popular.
Yeah,
but
he was trying to go for the LBJ kind of deal, but then it like a decade too late.
Yeah, well, let me get back to the military thing. That was heroic. So he was absolutely an American hero. Forget anything else except for that. He was an American hero for that alone. Another thing people don't realize is that Jimmy Carter was one of the few presidents, although I got to give it to Reagan too, and
we don't have to give anything to Reagan.
Well, no, here's the reason. When it came to UAPs or UFOs, as they were known at the time, Jimmy Carter was very, very fascinated with that because he had experienced a sighting that he could not explain. Same as Reagan had experienced a sighting that couldn't be explained. Now, here's the difference. And I don't know when they started, like, basically keeping presidents in the dark for plausible deniability is what I've always assumed when it came to UAP, UFO. However,
to be fair, Obama did joke about on whatever late night show.
Yeah, no, Obama joked about it, but I'm talking about like seriously trying to get answers on it. And the only ones that I know that stood up, especially at a time when it was very, very suspect.
Tinfoil hat.
Yeah, very tinfoil hat. And no one, because it had been shut down so many times by the government at that point, that he was kind of a trailblazer in the sense of he had the courage to speak up and say, look, this happened. I witnessed it. I want to know. Reagan witnessed it, had an experience as well, and said the same thing. Now, what he got versus what Carter got, I don't think were the same thing, because there are rumors, and I don't know if these are true or not, but there are rumors that Carter was actually read in on it, on the whole like UFO circumstance and so on and so forth. And in the course of him being read in on it, and again, this is something I cannot prove. I'm just repeating a story about Carter that I heard about him that always stuck with me and always made me admire him. But he actually started crying when they broke the news to him about what was up. Ask me why. Why,
Steve?
Because I'm glad you asked, Colton. Thank you. Such an easy setup. Fucking Kiefer doesn't get those setups. Give him a complicated setup and he catches it. Give him an easy setup. I don't know.
To be fair, with Kiefer, he's had, what, 30 years not living with you?
Yeah. And you haven't had quite that many. But here was what was interesting. He started crying because apparently what he was told was something that has been brought up again in recent years, which is this idea that if they do exist, which in this particular meeting they claimed that they did, that they look at us as containers for souls because they don't have souls, so they are searching for them or something to that effect. And not to get too deep into everything that's going on with UAPs and drones and all the shit that's going on in New Jersey, but
it just sounds like a really convoluted way of confirming Christian belief.
No, it was actually the opposite. This is what broke his heart. Because Jimmy Carter was very much, I mean, his code name from Secret Service was the Deacon. Jimmy Carter was a very, very religious, as was his wife. They were very, very religious, very, very into the church, very, very, very Christian. But that bit of news, he did not quite know how to handle that. And whether he finally came to terms with it in some form or fashion, I don't know. However, the reports
that's how I see any kind of like major declassification going, is it's gonna ruin a lot of people's religion.
Potentially. Okay.
Because
I don't know that that's a good or bad thing. I would say that it is probably a good thing because I think that, and we'll get to this later with kind of the overall theme of this particular show. We will get to that later, but I do think that religion, for all the good it's done over the years, has hit a point where it is no longer able to do good. And there are many reasons for that culturally.
Well, I mean, even more than that, it's juxtaposed with the material reality that we live in, but we can get into that later in the episode.
So I guess my point is that here's this man who's very, very much an American hero, very, very much dedicated to the idea of service, and very much a Christian. And when he got the debriefing, regardless of what was in that debriefing, it was life-altering for him and shook him to his core, to the point of tears. And I think that that's because it went against Christianity, okay? At least the overall belief system. Now, whether he was able to somehow or another do the mental gymnastics to bring it into his belief system, I don't know. But what I do know is
it's just God's side project.
Yeah. What I do know is that he pushed harder than really anyone else prior to that. It is interesting because that particular subject has become such a almost taboo, and I think when you're looking at whether it's Obama, Biden, Trump, Bush, I think that they've all asked the question because, I mean, as far as I know, everyone has asked the question. I don't know if George H.W. Bush asked the question, but he might have already had the answer.
He was too worried about getting into Iraq and the Middle East in general.
I think that he already knew because he had been in government so long. I think that he already had positions of power that would have granted him some sort of knowledge when it comes to UAPs.
Well, yeah, UFOs. He was a CIA man before.
Yes, exactly. He was
before being VP, right?
Right. In fact, Reagan didn't want him as a VP, but that was forced on him. And I think that was actually probably somewhat of a good thing. Not that I'm
wouldn't be prudent.
Yeah, wouldn't be prudent. Not going to raise those taxes. Oops. Got to raise those taxes. Sorry. One turn.
Not going to release the information about the UFO. Wouldn't be prudent.
Can't let the people know. Can't let the people know. They might get a little bit freaked out.
Now, excuse me while I vom on myself.
Yes, excuse me. You wouldn't happen to have a diplomat that I could puke on, would you? So with Carter, I think that he never got the kudos that he deserved necessarily, and even like if you can separate it from just the point of view, like I said, of what a president does while in office versus what they do once out of office. I can't think of, at least, I don't know if you can, I cannot think of any other president that had set themselves the task of manual labor for the good of poor people. I genuinely, and he did that.
Can't think of any.
He did that all the way through the rest of his life until he literally physically could not anymore. Like, this is a dude who fell off of a ladder, if I'm not mistaken, had to get stitches, had a black eye, and then went back to the work site. That's what we're talking about. And he was in his late 80s, maybe even early 90s when that happened.
It's almost like caring for people is a good trait.
Oh, you think?
Caring for people in need might be a good trait.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, you look at what the world needs, and that's not necessarily profitable or glamorous. You look at what people want, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when they're coming out of a position of power, you see a lot of cash grabbing. I would say the same, and I'm not just saying that about Republicans. I'm saying that specifically about Democrats, because if you look at what fucking Clinton is worth,
same coin.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Clinton was worth when he went into office versus what he's worth out of office, it's ridiculous. Same with Obama. Obama still had fucking student loans going into office that he either had just paid off or was just about to pay off. So, I mean,
Yeah.
but now,
It's two sides of the same coin with Republicans and Democrats. They're both awful people. I guess you can find examples on either side of good people, and Carter would be one of them.
yeah,
for the
like I said, I mean,
Democrats.
even if you disagree with his politics or you thought he wasn't exactly the best president, the fact of the matter is he was a lot better than you remember and a lot kinder than you would ever give credit for. I mean, this was a guy that was very much about serving the public.
Yeah.
End of
I
story.
mean, like I was saying, when my most likely Republican government teacher was explaining Jimmy Carter's presidency, even he was like, most people only remember the one speech where he came out and said, "Hey, we're in a bit of a gas crisis right now, so everyone's got to tighten the belt." So we don't.
No one
get
wanted to hear that.
$1.
Yeah, no one wanted to hear that.
Yeah, because we were still riding the high of the post-war, we're the best, rah rah USA.
Yeah, and then when we had the oil crunch and the crisis during that period of time, not to mention there was a lot of economic difficulties that went on during that period of time, I would say that a lot of them were
a recession in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but I remember like 18.5% interest rates on mortgages. Now, maybe I'm misremembering that, but because I was a child when I heard it, but I do remember my dad, your grandfather, going, I can't believe I was able to get 18.5%. Like he was happy about that because there were people that were paying 25% on their mortgages and shit like that, or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It was something stupid. Anyway, moving on. What else we got?
Yeah, so Biden came out with the hottest of hot takes and regrets pulling out of the 2024 race, according to the Washington Post. Now, everyone that has been following the 2024 election, which I hope is everyone, should know that it was fairly close when you look at the numbers, between Kamala and Trump.
We're
down to under 1.4%.
So it was like
popular.
170,000 votes, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're down to 1.4% difference between Kamala and Trump on the popular vote. Now,
okay, so
that does not necessarily mean, you can win the popular vote and still lose. That happened to Hillary Clinton. That's happened before. That can absolutely happen because we have this really fucking stupid thing called the Electoral College.
Which at some point did have a justification. I just don't think that it's like I was a big defender.
I don't think it's had a justification since 1900, quite honestly.
Well, you might be right there, okay? I mean, because you're obviously a lot more plugged into political science than even I am. However, there was a period in time where I would have defended the Electoral College because I do think that there is, obviously when you have Rhode Island versus California, there's just not the population there. Would their voices be heard? Would their votes really matter? So I do see it from that point of view.
Right.
However,
we have a Senate for that,
and that's it, and that's where it's come.
For anyone that is outside of the U.S. and maybe isn't entirely up to speed with the political system of the U.S., we have a House of Representatives, which is proportionate to population. Then we also have a Senate in which each state gets exactly 2 senators for a total of 100.
Senior and a junior.
Yeah. So that was when those were created. That was the equalizing force between small states and big states, right? That was supposed to be the equalizing force between New York and Rhode Island, or in a more modern context, maybe Rhode Island and Texas, right? The Electoral College was also supposed to be an equalizing force. I don't think it has ever proven itself to be an equalizing force in any sense.
Congress in general has ceded so many of their rights to the presidency at this point.
Yeah.
They, in many ways, are toothless, in my opinion.
With Trump coming in, we're about to see George W. Bush's unitary executive theory on steroids, which unitary executive theory, for anyone that doesn't know, is the belief that the president should be the sole
arbiter.
Yeah, the sole arbiter, the sole power in government, and everyone else in government needs to bolster that.
Yeah, serve
Is the
king.
best way to say it.
Serve the king.
Unitary executive theory is the closest to monarchy we can get without saying king.
Yeah.
Which my American history seems to recollect that we fought a revolution and then Revolution 2.0 in 1812 to not have a king, but fuck, maybe I wasn't paying attention in U.S. history. It's possible. I mean, I'm the best student.
No, but unfortunately, I know when it comes to certain things like that, your ears tend to perk up.
Yeah. Anyway,
specifically
with Biden.
So Biden thinks that this would have been a different outcome with him.
He thinks for some fucking reason, I don't know what kind of crack Hunter is feeding him, but he seems to think that he would have done better than Kamala.
He still would have lost
the election. He would have lost by a fucking landslide.
I think it would have been horrible.
We're talking if Biden wouldn't have dropped out of the race, we would have had at least a 46 state sweep.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think
if
that he's delusional.
And the only reason I don't say 50 is because California and New York.
Yeah. But I mean, he's fucking delusional even saying that. And to me, that kind of commentary from him shows he's not capable. Like
especially with
the next 20 days, 22 days or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I really like with a level of concern, because if anything happens really big in the next 20, 25 days before inauguration.
Well, I mean, recently some of his aides did a tell-all. I don't know if you saw this. Some of his aides did a tell-all in which they were saying he hasn't been functional since 2021.
Now, I don't know that I fully believe that.
I mean, they're his aides.
Definitely believe late 2022, because that's when I started to see it. Now, aides will come out of the woodwork when they know it's kind of the ship is sinking and the rats are diving.
How can I make a diamond out of this?
Yeah, so I think a lot of those aides are saying what they think is going to make them money, but not necessarily true or even provable one form or another. With that being said, I would definitively say from mid to late 2022 is when I started to notice that he was losing a step. Yep. However, and that was about 2 years into his presidency. And honestly, I think we're going to see the same thing with Trump, because
Trump is as old as Biden was when he won in 2020. So,
right.
Yes, you're correct. We're going to see the same thing out of Trump.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. You have people that can make it into their 90s or later even, you know what I mean, who have their shit together and you wouldn't know aside from looking at them.
I don't discount that because I like Bernie.
Right.
He's still all there.
Still all there. So it's still not all there, necessarily.
And I think he's 86.
Where I think the problem comes, right? Where I think the problem comes is you're dealing with a level of stress and pressure which is unprecedented by any other job out there. Okay. And you know that because you see guys like Barack Obama come in and they've got a full head of dark hair and they leave and they are bone white. Right.
Yeah. And that's not to mention the 4 years of, whether you want to believe it's a witch hunt or not, I happen to believe it was not a witch hunt. 4 years of legal threat.
It's got to wear on Trump. Yeah. It's got to wear on him. It's got to wear on anyone.
The last 4 years. I can't even imagine being as stressed as Donald Trump was in the last 4 years.
You hear these reports that he just fluffs it off like it's just, water on a duck's back. But I don't think that anyone who is in any type of situation where they're facing a felony, I don't care who you are.
4 years.
Yeah, for 4 years you're staring down a felony. I don't think anyone, like, the only thing that has helped him is the fact that now he gets to cancel all that shit from happening to him. I think that that's a huge, weight off of his back.
And we can absolutely, I feel like this is an entire episode on its own, but you can have a very nuanced discussion about how Democrats the moniker "Do Nothing Democrats" really came true in the last 4 years because they dragged their asses on all of these federal charges, and because of that, they were rushed at the end and didn't have the time to.
Well, I totally blame the Democrats for not fucking stepping up right away out of the gate and getting that shit rolling.
That investigation should have started
on the 21st, right after.
Fuck the 21st. That should have started on the 7th.
I agree, but you wouldn't have gotten that to start on the 7th because you didn't on the 7th. Trump was still president, so he would have just put the kibosh on it.
Yeah.
So it like literally that's the only reason why I say the 21st. And the reason why it wouldn't happen any other way is, prior to that is because no matter what McConnell said, no matter what any of the Republicans said on the 7th, none of them had the courage to like move forward as quickly as possible and impeach him.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing to consider. Republican Congress people haven't liked Trump since January 6th. Like, there are very few that have kind of fallen in lockstep with Trump since then.
Well, I would say that you see a lot of them join him lockstep in the media, but in reality,
publicly, they're with him because they're trying to find the most politically expedient and the most politically lifelong situation that
they're looking at it for their own benefit. They're not looking at it for what the truth is or what should be done or how it should be done or what the right thing is to do. None of that is taken into consideration.
They all know they were there.
Yeah, I mean, and many of them spoke up not only on that day but the day after and a couple days after that and a week or two after that. So they are
and then
on
they all
record.
had to go through this self-flagellation to
get back
earn Trump's good graces back.
Yeah. So I mean, like, all of that is. That's the soap opera that will play out for the next 4 years, but specifically the next 2 years. So when it comes to Trump, I think that a couple things. One, I don't honestly think that he was necessarily interested in being president again. I think he was more interested in staying out of jail.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think he was more interested in being president because of all of the perceived perks that come with that, and I think that for him it was merely a power play.
You're going to invade Mexico.
I think he just likes being in charge, but I don't think he likes doing the work that's involved, at least at this point in his life. I mean, I'm not saying that this was the way it was always with him.
Dude, he's 80, well, not 80, he's 77, 78, something like that. He should be retired.
I don't know what the fuck anyone, especially with his cash.
Yeah, any other
between his cash and between the amount of money that he is supposedly worth versus what is liquid or whatever that amount is, I'm not gonna piss on him and say,
let's say he at least has $5 billion because that's the figure that I've heard.
Honestly, let's just go with the $1 billion. That's all you need.
He's
$1 billion
around another 10, 12 years.
Yeah, it's good. $1 billion is going to last you a while, right? But let's just assume that
keeping in mind, you would have to earn, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it's something like $5,000 an hour since Jesus Christ died.
Something like that.
To
have $1 billion.
To have the net worth of, a Jeff Bezos, right?
So my understanding is, and I could be wrong on this, if you earned $1, fuck was it, $1 a minute or $1 a second, it's like 11 minutes and you're a millionaire. If you earned $1 a second, it would take you 31 years to be a billionaire.
Yeah.
It's something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, the one that I've heard is if you were to count to 1 million, it would take you 11 days. If you were to count to 1 billion, it would take you 31 years.
Something. Regardless, it's ridiculous. And they're like, at that age and with his love of golf, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this? Yeah,
what is he spending on?
Yeah, I mean, like, why? Why do you even want this? Like, if there were no court cases at all, Do you think he would have run? I think he would have, just because his ego was bruised.
Well,
So-
yeah, I mean, he taking away all of, January 6th and any kind of legal action against him for that, or the election interference in Georgia, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
I think he's tired.
I do too. I mean, and I'm not.
the only thing keeping him going in the world of politics is his ego.
I hate to say it, but I agree. And that's the thing. Like,
I mean,
look,
he is such an easily bruised ego, and he cannot allow that to happen.
so here's my take is, I don't think that he actually wanted the job. I think there were all these other factors that pushed him, whether it was the legal woes or whether it's his ego, whatever.
I think it was a joke in 2015.
I think it was too. I don't think he expected to win. I think he was using it as a negotiating.
He was doing it to get out of the E. Jean Carroll thing.
No. Back in 2015, 2016, when he won, they weren't going to renew The Apprentice, and I think he was doing it to try to get The Apprentice renewed, and then he won, and that's when you had Schwarzenegger take over The Apprentice for a season, and then it went away because him and Donald didn't get along, right?
Yeah, because Schwarzenegger might be a Republican, but he's like a sensible person.
Yeah, and very much in MAGA world a rhino. I don't think that he is a rhino. I think he does have very, very, and based on how he grew up in Austria and all
I think
that.
he's like the platonic ideal of a Republican.
Yeah, all right, I'll go with that. But look, regardless of the fact that I have a deep dislike of Trump as a human being, okay? Because again, I think I always run into this. People are like, how can you not like Trump? I'm like, look, you got to understand, my dislike of Trump goes back to the 80s. This isn't like, forget the policy, forget anything. I didn't think he was a good human being. Even when he was a Democrat, I thought he was a horrible piece of shit.
Well, again, you can't really be a billionaire without being a shit person. So
And that maybe that's the case, and that's probably why I'm not a billionaire, because I refuse to treat people in the way that I've seen him treat people.
if you believe people are more important than profits, then you will never have a hope of being a billionaire.
Well, there goes my hope.
And yeah, I agree.
Aside
Like,
from a lottery
people-
ticket, I ain't making it.
people are more important than profits.
But again, it's one of those things where, look, he's the president-elect. He's going to be the president. And in all honesty, as an American, not as a Democrat or Republican, not as a liberal
Mhm.
or a conservative, not as a MAGA or somebody with a brain, I hope he succeeds. I do. I hope, like, that's...
I hope he's able to steer the country in a good direction, because
Yeah.
we're clearly not going in a good direction. Otherwise, we would not have Trump.
Yeah. So I hope that he's able to turn, the ship
But
around.
let's be honest here. He's not doing shit.
No, I don't think so. I think he's going
He's
to...
not doing shit.
Well, my view is that 70% of his presidency will be spent golfing, and all of and of that
The other
70%
30 will be spent lying.
lying, campaigning, and cheerleading, with a lot. I think his entire presidency is going to be in the first 100 days. I think after the first 100 days, he's going to kind of check out.
Yeah,
and
I think
just leave it to staff.
I think you're kind of right on that, because I mean, beyond that, let's be real here. Elon is going to be a shadow president.
I don't buy that. I'm sorry. I don't buy that. I know that's the narrative right now, but I have not seen enough concrete evidence to make me believe that. Will Elon have Trump's ear? Yeah, but so will Bezos, so will Zuckerberg, so will all the billionaire bros, whether they're tech bros or whether they're Wall Street bros. They've all got his ear.
I said it in the last episode, and I'll say it again. This presidency is just a successful iteration of the fascist business plot from the 1930s.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't think that here, you got to remember that if you don't know how to approach Trump, and make it to where he can present it as if it was his idea, which Elon cannot do. Elon's ego's too big. So at some point, Elon...
Well, I mean, he's also a fascist, so yeah, they tend to have pretty big egos.
Yeah, the huge ego. All right. And so with Elon, I just don't think he's used to being told no. And I don't think that he's used to not having the limelight on him.
Ooh, I'm a self-made billionaire. All I had was my father's diamond mine with slave labor.
Again, I'm not here to piss on Elon. I'm not here to piss on Trump. But what I will do,
I'm here to piss on them both.
I will say that at the end of it, I do hope that whether I agree with the policies or I disagree with the policies, that at the end of it, the country's in a better place. And there's just no fucking way that Biden was going to win. There was no.
No, I mean,
that's a delusional old man saying that.
Yeah, no, while I understand where you're coming from with the aides might just be trying to find some kind of post-Biden.
This is where the cash-in starts.
Yeah, while I agree with you to an extent on that.
It's the speaking tours, it's the book deals, it's all that.
I do not in any sense discount the fact that he has been just being weakened at Bernie's. Like for the majority, even if we just say a day past half of his term, like he's been weekend at Bernie's this entire time, right?
Well,
whether you want to say it's 2 years or 3 years, whatever,
doesn't matter.
In 2020, he was with it enough to win, clearly, but I don't think he made it much past that.
Well, I mean, that may be true, but you got to admit, he got a fuck ton done legislatively. It was, for having.
I'll always give him credit. He's been one of the most labor focused presidents we've ever had.
Yeah,
he's been great on labor.
And
right?
I mean, look, you got the CHIPS Act, you've got the Inflation Reduction Act, you've got him bringing down the price of prescription drugs. Look, these are major things. You got the Infrastructure Act. These are big deals.
With that, though. Part of the problem with that, though, is Biden, and the congressional Democrats they've had the deck stacked against them in such a way that they've had to compromise on the best parts of those acts.
Dude, again,
to get them passed.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that, but I will tell you that in
compromise is how shit is done, but at the same time, we had FDR who said, you're going to lose federal funding on this, and this, unless you pass this, and this. But
this is the problem. Hold on. This is the problem with the Democrats for a very long time. This is probably almost my entire lifetime that the Democrats have had this problem. If there's a way for them to shit the bed, they will shit the bed.
Yeah.
And they will
do nothing, Democrats.
They really are. If there's a way for them to say the right thing and then go and completely fuck it up, or have the right idea and then say the wrong thing and then do legislation that's completely fucked up from the original idea, they will do that. Democrats, you hear Trump going, "Oh, the Democrats, they stick together. They're tough and blah 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 blah. We need the Republicans to be like the Democrats." No,
it's almost like WWE. You have a baby face and you have a heel.
Yep.
Right,
and it changes every 4 years.
Depending on who's president, depending on who's got the majority in the House and the Senate, you have a different baby face and you have a different heel, but they're both playing to the same end.
Right. And it's a shame that Uncle Kiefer can't be here for this one because he is so into wrestling.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much he loves it. And he's brilliant. He's got, he could probably, if there was a wrestling museum, he could be a tour guide and not ever have to study because he just knows
no training.
Shit. No training. Yep. He just walk in and talk your ears off about everything historical with wrestling. But I think that you're right in that and that actually brings us to what I wanted to talk about today, which is this idea that it's always a battle against each other instead of what can we do that we agree on. I would love for once a
collaborative effort
to where whoever the president is, I don't give a shit. They all come together and they go, all right, before we start arguing, let's take these 100 days and figure out what we agree on, and let's pass as much shit as we can, because we on both sides agree that this is in the best interest of the country, even if it's only for 100 days. Just come together for 100 fucking days and have, they could literally take from the moment of the election until the inauguration and have the two parties have representatives going, what do we agree on? What do we disagree on? What can we move forward? What's in the best interest of the American people that we agree on? And for those first 100 days, they just rocket ship everything through. Okay. And then take the next 3 years and however many, 3.5 years, 3.25 years, and argue the fuck, jerk off yourselves in Congress. I don't give a shit. But can you give us at least 100 days with a new president, no matter who that president is, where the House and the Senate sit down prior to inauguration and they go, these are the things that we will not back away from. We will not back down from. We are only going to work together on this, and we are going to push this president for the next 100 days to go along with this because this is in the interest of the American people. And after that, we'll have all kinds of fights and all kinds of issues and all kinds of bullshit, and we will just shit sling as much as possible like we always do.
Say what you will as far as the pros and cons of the Bolshevik Soviet kind of system. I'm willing to hear critiques, but democratic centralism was a really, really good policy. And if you don't know, anyone at home and Dad, democratic centralism is the idea that in deliberation, we can discuss this until we're blue in the face. Once we come to an agreement, that's the end of it.
Well, here's the problem that I've found lately. You see a lot, and this is under Biden. This isn't even Trump, so I'm not putting this. Though Trump has had his hand in it, okay. I'm not going to lay it on Trump. It's Biden's presidency right now, and this happened under the Biden presidency. But this is definitively a Republican problem. If you come to the table, and they've done this like 2 or 3 times now. If you come to the table and you negotiate in earnest and you come to an agreement in earnest, and then when that earnest agreement is announced and you have to take a little bit of heat, whether it's from an ex-president like Trump who's going to be president again, or anyone else, I don't give a shit who it is, your constituents, whatever. When you come to the table and you come with an agreement and you leave with an agreement that you have agreed to do, don't back the fuck out of it once it goes up for a vote.
Yeah.
And we've seen that happen, 2-3 times now with the Republicans, maybe more, that I'm just not thinking of.
Well, the problem is, at least under Biden's presidency, the reason that has been happening more frequently under Biden's presidency is because Republicans don't have values. Congressional Republicans don't have values aside from their own self-interest.
I think that's every politician, but go on.
And beyond that, they've had the looming cloud of Trump, in the sense that if Trump doesn't like what you're doing, he will make sure you don't get reelected.
Yeah, but
and that's their whole goal. A congressional Republican's whole goal, and Democrat, their whole goal is to maintain their seat.
Well, that's both sides. I mean,
I'm not saying that Democrats are free of that. But what I am saying is that when you have the looming cloud of let's say
getting
the hot
primaried.
commodity,
being primaried.
Yeah, you have the looming cloud of being primaried. You have the looming cloud of the hot commodity in the Republican Party saying, if you don't kill this bill, I'll make sure you don't get reelected. That's an issue.
Okay, but is it because
you have an outside force influencing Congress?
Yeah, and you have that, whether it's the billionaire class, whether it's the corporate class, whether it's Citizens United ruling. I mean, you've already got that. The only difference is it's Trump saying that to them.
Yeah.
That's always been the case. And they had to make a decision.
It's been the case since Citizens United. Yes, you're right. But what you're seeing that's different here is that Donald Trump is to the MAGA Republican, the God King, right?
That's the problem.
If Trump passes his holy mandate, his papal bull, right, and says this person shall not be reelected, that person's not getting reelected.
Not pass.
If Marjorie Taylor Greene comes sideways at something that Trump wants to do, let's say that's never going to happen, but let's say, right? And Trump says, because Marjorie Taylor Greene has transgressed against
MAGA,
myself, the God King, she shall not be reelected. She will not be reelected. That's just a fact.
Yeah, but who fucking cares? Okay, like I told you, I got approached by the DNC to run for. They didn't care what I ran for. I don't even know how they fucking got my name and number. Okay, but they reached out to me.
Registered.
Well,
registered
no,
voter.
It wasn't just being a registered voter. It couldn't have been, because the way that they were talking to me was as if they knew a lot more about my politics than
Dude,
had.
You'd be shocked and amazed at the insider. I mean, for anyone that is not aware, for this past 2024 election, I was working as a field organizer, campaigning for Kamala Harris, and I was, knocking doors, I was checking on my people, so on and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end of it, my boss brought up this database and pulled anyone that was interested in seeing the information that these super PACs and these parties have. They knew my voting record. As far as, obviously, who you vote for is private, but they knew every election that I voted in. They knew. Well,
I mean, that's never been.
They knew my race, age, where I lived, everything.
Okay, but that's not the level that I'm talking. I mean, the lady that I talked to was very, very excited to speak with me. Felt that I was going to be an excellent communicator for the Democratic Party. Was very familiar.
Well, it doesn't help that you have a public speaking record.
No, I know, I get that. Okay, but again, knew that about me. Knew that I had been in stand up, and I even voiced concern because of the fact that I was more of a dirty comic, and I thought, I don't know that you necessarily want me. And they're like, oh no. We do. We want somebody that can speak truth to power. We want somebody that's not afraid. We want somebody that can speak to the ordinary person. And all the things that they were saying, I was like, okay. Like, I started to really get, I don't want to say that the fish hook got landed, but it was in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I backed away from it. And they were offering me, and this is no joke. They said, anything you want from congressional seat down in your area, in your county, if it's available to run for, we'll support you. Okay? Like, that's how ridiculous.
Should've done it.
I debated it. I did debate it. But to be honest with you,
Congress needs dick jokes.
Yeah, they do. They definitely do.
Congress needs dick jokes.
I did debate it. I did debate the idea, but I guess at the end of the day, I realized, for me personally, putting myself out there like that was not something I wanted to expose you or any of our family to, because of the idea that they get so dirty. You know what I mean? Like, they get nasty. And
yeah.
I'm thinking, for what? Why would I do that? You know what I mean? I'm going up against an incumbent Republican in one of the reddest districts in the state. And chances are I'm not going to be able to pull that off, at least on a first run at it. You know what I mean? Because I don't have the same name recognition politically. Mm-hmm. So I decided against it. But my point is that I at least had the idea, or at least had the knowledge that was the case. I don't think Biden has, like, it's not sinking in. Like,
he doesn't have the
you
wherewithal.
You only had the potential for possibly 30% of the vote in the country. And that was on a good day.
Even a stretch.
That's a stretch. That was on a good day. Kamala did, like, not that she was my favorite candidate, but she was given an unbelievable difficult task.
Well, I mean, the unfortunate aspect of it was she had leftists saying, "Hey, you should elect the boss cop of the state,"
Right. So
she was the boss cop of California, and she had leftists who are historically
anti-boss cop,
very anti-cop in general,
right?
Just raving over her to an extent. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that it was the right move for Biden to drop. I think it was probably not the right move for Kamala to be put in without a Democratic primary. But at the same time, they only left themselves 120 days to.
And that's the point. Is you know what?
A campaign.
This is where I say fuck you to Biden. Okay.
Yeah, he should have stuck to his word and been a one-term president.
He should have stuck to his word. B, everyone, including Jill Biden, in early 2023, if not before, should have said, "Hey, Joey, you got some health issues.
Joey, my boy,
you can't do this. You've done enough. It's time to pass the torch." Yeah. Whatever kind way they could get him to understand that you're not connecting words well anymore. You're spacing out. You got sundowners. You're not, this isn't working. And it's not fair to you or the country to try to keep pushing you forward in this position. That should have happened in 2022, late 2022, early 2023.
Fuck fair to Biden. It's not fair to the country. Because now, guess what? Because of how short of a campaign Kamala had, and with the DNC skipping over a primary because they had to, because they were only given 120 days, something like that.
Yeah.
Because of all of these events, because Biden did not stick to his word, we are marching our way into a fascist oligarchy.
Well, again, I would have to agree with you. I'm not even getting into the fact that that's not even talking about the fact that Trump won the popular vote, right? He had about the same amount of voters as he did in 2020. All right, let me ask you this.
Right.
If Trump won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College, the exact opposite of what happened in 2016.
Yeah.
How do you think that would have worked out?
Oh, I mean, he would have been throwing a fit about the Electoral College. And we might actually no longer have an Electoral College, which I would be in favor of. To be perfectly clear,
that goes to my point.
College,
even a broken clock is right twice a day. So at least twice every day, you got to give Trump the opportunity to be right, no matter how much you dislike.
The Electoral College is a waste of time.
It's like daylight saving. So look, he's going to get. He
complicates everything.
He says he's going to get rid of daylight savings time. I'm totally for that. I'll give you a feather in your cap, Donnie. Get rid of daylight savings time. We don't need it anymore. Get rid of the Electoral College. We don't need it anymore. I do believe that every once in a while you need somebody like Donald Trump, who is a disruptor, who is the agent of chaos. Because you have to burn some things down sometimes in order to give room for new shit to grow. Absolutely. He's Loki. He is every mythological character that was agent of chaos.
Yes, but at the same time, when he's talking about plunging us into a fascist oligarchy, that's where I can no longer.
I'm not saying that we don't have to have guardrails. I'm just saying, you do need somebody in every society that comes along. That's why those characters exist in as far as, archetypes.
Mythology.
Just the archetype of what Donald Trump is. I don't have to like that archetype. I don't have to feel comfortable with it. I don't have all those things, but it is a necessity.
Raise a little hell, raise a little hell.
Yeah.
Raise a little hell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You do need that. And I do think that our politics had gotten very stale. I think it had gotten very corrupt.
And to that, I would point everyone to the episode we did about liberalism, conservatism, neoliberalism, and neoconservatism.
Absolutely. Go back and check that one.
Neoliberalism and neoconservatism has been stale since Bill Clinton.
Well, and that's the thing is like here you had this very young, energetic, handsome, though chubby president. Everyone referred to as Bubba, lovingly, affectionately, right? Would run, do his daily jog and stop at a McDonald's so he could have a Big Mac. That's why I did the jog, is so that I could eat the Big Mac. Like I get that little bit of a slice of heaven only lasts so long, and even during his presidency, it only lasted so long until the Republicans came after him with Whitewater and then Kenneth Starr and Monica Lewinsky and all those things. And
I'm coming out strongly in favor of getting White House Oval Office dome.
Wait, well, what?
I'm coming out strongly in favor of Oval Office dome.
Dome? Okay, what do you mean? Lay it on me.
Just because, you're talking about raising a little hell. What raises a little hell? Like a presidential sex scandal.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So, but here's the thing is that in the years that have transpired since that happened, okay?
Get LBJ and his jumbo out here.
I got to tell you, though, I think that through that whole thing, like it was you could have an LBJ who would open the door while he was taking a shit to give an interview to a reporter just to throw them off,
or scream someone down while honking a dookie.
Yeah, like he would absolutely do that. But those days were those days, and just the same as what happened with Monica Lewinsky, those were those days. In retrospect, that poor woman suffered endlessly for something that she should not have been held accountable for. She was 22.
Yeah. No, I'm not coming out in favor of the power dynamic between that.
No, and I still think Clinton owes her a fucking
apology. The most
apology.
powerful person in the world and an intern. So I'm not coming out in favor of that, but I am coming out in favor of Oval Office dome.
Oval Office dome, which for those of you who aren't necessarily digesting that means getting a little bit ahead while you're a president. And I think with that, that's another Elsie's Little Pickles. Happy New Year's, motherfuckers.